Good afternoon and welcome to IBA News. I'm Elon Aslan-Levy and you're joining us live from Jerusalem. The trial of IDF soldier Sergeant Elor Azaria, who faces manslaughter charges for shooting a subdued terrorist in Hebron in March, began today at the Jaffa Military Court. This as new details emerge contradicting the soldier's original testimony. IBA's Aria O'Sullivan has more.
Sitting in front of his parents, his mother stroking his neck, Sergeant Elor Azaria heard the military prosecutor reading out the indictment for manslaughter. You aimed at his head and fired a single bullet from short range. This in contravention of the rules of engagement and without operational justification. Azaria said he understood the charges against him. The case, which has divided Israel, could end in a plea bargain as the judges advised the sides to mediate. The soldier, who is a medic, was captured on video firing at the head of Arab terrorists who had already been shot by soldiers after he stabbed one of them on March 24th in Tel Rumeida inside of Hebron. Prosecutors claimed the shooting was motivated by revenge, but defense lawyers said he feared the terrorist was still posing a threat and was moving for a knife. New video footage has emerged that the incapacitated terrorist was over a meter away from the knife. Defense lawyers also charged that the prosecutors were being guided by top commanders and that they wanted to remove it from the daily agenda. They were keen on keeping it in public since they were encouraged by the far-right supporters and some politicians who have accused the defense establishment of abandoning one of their own. The court refused a request to allow the soldier home for leave for Independence Day, and he remains in open detention. The court will continue its deliberations in 2 weeks' time. Aria O'Sullivan for IBA News.
A senior Iranian general announced today that the Islamic Republic successfully tested a precision-guided medium-range ballistic missile capable of hitting Israel. Brigadier General Ali Abdullah said the test took place 2 weeks ago. He said the missile has a range of 2,000 kilometers and enjoys a zero margin of error. The Iranian general said his country invests some 10% of its defense budget in new defensive capabilities. Just 2 months ago, Iran conducted a ballistic missile test using projectiles with a Hebrew inscription calling to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Belgian Foreign Minister Didier Reynders today met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. The two discussed the French peace initiative aimed at jump-starting peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians. Before visiting Jerusalem, the Belgian Foreign Minister travelled to Ramallah, where he met his Palestinian counterpart Riyad al-Maliki. Israel has dismissed the initiative, calling it an impediment to direct bilateral negotiations that further distances prospects for peace. For their part, the Palestinians have welcomed the summit slated to take place in Paris on the 30th of May. Meeting with his Belgian counterpart, the Palestinian foreign minister took advantage of the opportunity to blast Israel over settlement construction in the West Bank.
How settlement is really eats up the possibility of reaching a two-state solution. We talked about the French initiative and the need to do our utmost to support such initiative and what is really needed, looking for Belgium also to be present in such meeting if when that takes place. We talked about our intentions as Palestine to go to the Security Council to present a resolution on settlement issues.
We are supporting the French initiative because we need to do something. We need to have at least a conference and then maybe to start a process. And we are very open to take part, if it's possible, from Belgium in such a process. I said that we are open again to organize some meetings among business people from both sides, from Palestinian Authority territories and from Israel. But we are asking to go further with the same two-state solution since so many years that we are so afraid to see that it will be more and more difficult to do that due to the settlements. We have sent a lot of condemnations month after month about the settlements.
The Jerusalem Magistrates Court charged nuclear whistleblower Mordechai Vanunu with violating the terms of release from jail and failing to notify the authorities that he'd moved to another apartment in the same building in which he resides. Prosecutors at Sunday's court hearing also claim that in a 2015 interview with Channel 2, Vanunu relayed classified information that was cut by the censor. In 2013, he also met with 2 American citizens in an East Jerusalem hotel, breaching his terms of release. Vanunu, a former technician at Israel's Dimona nuclear reactor, was released from prison in 2004 after serving an 18-year sentence. His release was conditioned on severe restrictions on movement, and he was forbidden from talking to journalists and foreigners. In his first public engagement in office, London's newly elected mayor Sadiq Khan paid respect on Sunday to the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust. The annual Holocaust Memorial event inside a rugby stadium in North London brought together thousands from the British capital's Jewish community, including more than 150 survivors. Khan attended the ceremony following a racially charged election campaign in which his main rival sought to portray him as an apologist for Islamic extremism, amid an ongoing anti-Semitism crisis within Khan's own Labour Party.
It's really important that we remember the atrocities of the Holocaust. More than 6 million Jews from around the world perished during the Holocaust. It's been 71 years now since the Second World War ended, and what today's theme is remembering, reflecting, but also educating the next generations about the Holocaust. And today was moving. I met Holocaust survivors, their children, their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, and I think as the Mayor of London it's really important that I was here.
Here at home, several hundred Russian-Israeli World War II veterans marched in Jerusalem yesterday to mark the 71st anniversary of the victory over Nazi Germany. Dressed in their old uniforms and adorned with victory medals, the men who had fought for various European armies during the war smiled and waved as they passed a crowd of cheerful supporters. The commemoration in the capital takes place one day before tomorrow's celebrations in Moscow, where tanks and troops traditionally parade across the Red Square. Joining me now in the studio to discuss the latest developments is Amos Asael, senior columnist at the Jerusalem Post. Amos, welcome.
Hi, Lon.
Controversy continues over remarks last week by the IDF Deputy Chief of Staff Yair Golan that he sees evidence of the same horrifying processes that occurred in Europe 70, 80, 90 years ago in Israel today. What are we to make of these remarks and the political and media fallout?
Well, as would be typical of Israeli dynamics, discourse immediately proceeded to the substance of his statements rather than to what, in my view, the discourse should focus on, which is the position from which he spoke, the public position, I mean. His position is that of a civil servant. And civil servants, especially senior generals, including even his superior, the chief of staff, are in no position to discuss social issues in Israel or political issues. This is the equivalent of him, for instance, taking sides on things relating, say, to Israel's healthcare system. He's not meant to do that from his position, and he's not meant to discuss Israel's social processes.
Right, but on that, the Prime Minister and Defense Minister don't exactly see eye to eye on this issue. We've had Prime Minister Netanyahu calling the comments outrageous, saying they cheapen the Holocaust, while Defense Minister Ya'alon has expressed his full confidence in the officer and has accused his critics of intentionally distorting his words as part of a wider campaign to attack the army. What's the reason for the disagreement here?
I think, first of all, that Netanyahu's reflex in such situations is to discuss the substance of an argument, especially if it is one that challenges his own leadership, at least indirectly. And Ya'alon's instinct is equally misguided. It is to defend the military and all of its commanders, regardless of circumstances. This is a familiar trend among Israeli defense ministers, especially the ones who were previously themselves generals, like Ya'alon. And I think that in this situation, the discussions should simply be about what generals should be discussing in terms of issues, regardless of positions.
Well, while on the subject of Netanyahu and Ya'alon, both have come under fire in a leaked report of the State Controller's report over the 2014 Operation Protective Edge, which has reportedly criticized them for keeping the cabinet in the dark and being unprepared for dealing with the threat of tunnels. Now, Israelis, of course, remember that Golda Meir, Dan Chalutz, Ariel Sharon were all forced to resign after reports that criticized their handling of war. Should we expect heads to roll here as well?
Well, first of all, the analogies that we hear as you quote them also, they are far-fetched. This is not about, nobody says that what happened here 2 years ago in terms of the fighting in Gaza caught the IDF off guard or unprepared. The IDF actually appeared over there in terms of training and equipment in a very impressive fashion, certainly much more impressively than it had during the Second Lebanon War, not to mention the Yom Kippur War. And there was also, by the same token, no extravagant, adventurous type of agenda of the sort that we had in the First Lebanon War under Ariel Sharon's lead. Therefore, there is no analogy to all these precedents. Having said this, there was this specific issue of the tunnels, which arguably, and light still needs to be shed, but arguably that did catch the IDF off guard momentarily. But in the broader scheme of things, this was not a failure of the sort that we previously saw in previous wars or rounds of violence, and I therefore think that the aftermath of this row will be by no means similar to the ones that preceded it.
Well, moving over to Britain, Israelis and Anglos in particular have been disturbed at the ongoing anti-Semitism scandal in the British Labour Party. Is this all going to blow over soon, or are we seeing signs of more disturbing trends among the global left?
No, what I think we see in Britain's Labour is a symptom of a broader phenomenon, namely the political maturation of the Islamic immigrations into Europe. This is what it is really about. Ken Livingstone's case notwithstanding, he's not a Muslim immigrant and he was central in this scandal, but he's exceptional. The typical anti-Semitic pronouncement comes from a Muslim British politician, usually of a low level or parliamentary backbencher. And these are forerunners of what in the future is likely to be an even more broad and senior Islamic presence in European politics. So this is by no means anecdotal, it's very serious, and Britain's Labour should bear in mind that one of its most effective ideologues over the years was Harold Lasky, a Jew who was an unabashed Zionist and whose legacy to Labour was that Zionism is not only tolerable, but in fact, from a Labour viewpoint, an ideal.
Well, one hopes Labour will return to its Israel-friendly roots. Amos, thank you very much. That's all we have time for. Martin Luther King III, son of the late American civil rights leader, arrived in the country this week to present an award to Israeli activists working on behalf of the Ethiopian community. At a special ceremony at the president's residence in Jerusalem, King granted the 2016 Unsung Hero Award to singer Idan Reichel, journalist Anad Saragusti, and former Knesset member Pnina Tamano-Shata. Hosting the event, President Reuven Rivlin welcomed King by quoting from his father's final speech before his assassination in 1968, invoking the dream of Ethiopian Jews to literally reach the promised land. King said that his father's message of hope and healing is perhaps needed today more than ever around the world. Memorial Day services will commence at sunset tomorrow evening when the nation will pay tribute to members of security forces and civilians killed in battle and terror attacks. Ahead of Memorial Day, IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot saluted Israel's fallen soldiers at the Mount Herzl Military Cemetery, where all the graves were adorned with Israeli flags. More in this report from IBA's Margot Dudkevich.
The annual ceremony to adorn the graves of fallen soldiers and members of the security forces was held for the 15th consecutive year at Jerusalem's Mount Herzl Cemetery. Soldiers are placing flags on the graves in 52 military cemeteries across the country. This is our way to salute our sons and daughters who set out on their mission, acted on the values of commitment, friendship and love of country, and gave their lives to protect the country and its people, Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot said at yesterday's ceremony that was attended by bereaved families, Police Chief Ronnie Al-Sheikh, and the heads of Israel's prison services and fire brigade. Eisenkot vowed not to rest until all of Israel's missing soldiers and those whose place of burial is unknown are returned home. Figures released by the Defense Ministry reveal that since 1860, when Jews began to settle outside the walls of Jerusalem, a total of 23,447 Israeli soldiers and members of the security forces, including pre-state underground fighters, lost their lives. In the past year, 68 soldiers, border police and members of the police force and intelligence agencies died in the line of duty. 59 were disabled IDF veterans who passed away as a result of war-related injuries. The number of bereaved families in the country stands at 16,307, with 1,948 orphans up to the age of 30. On Tuesday night, a candle-lighting ceremony at the Western Wall in Jerusalem's Old City will mark the start of Memorial Day for Israel's fallen troops and security personnel who lost their lives defending the state. A 1-minute siren at 8 p.m. will sound throughout the country as the nation comes to a standstill and pays tribute to its fallen. On Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock, a 2-minute-long siren will mark the start of Remembrance Day ceremonies across the country, with a state ceremony at Mount Herzl Cemetery and at Kiryat Shaul Military Cemetery. At 1 o'clock, an official state ceremony for all those killed in terror attacks will be held at a special memorial site, also at Mount Herzl. The solemn day's events will end on Wednesday night with a national flag-raising ceremony at Mount Herzl, heralding the start of Independence Day festivities. Marko Dudkevich, IBA News.
Our reporter adds that this year the Defence Ministry's commemoration branch has launched a smartphone app that gives out information regarding all events conducted by bereaved families around the country. The app is called Embracing All Year Round, Mechabkim Kol Hashana in Hebrew, and can be downloaded to any smartphone. The Defence Ministry recognises 16,307 official bereaved family members of fallen soldiers and terrorism victims, including widows, orphans and bereaved parents. Shlomi Nachumson is the youth director of the IDF Widows and Orphans Organization, the official representative of Israel's military widow and orphans. He joins me live in the studio now. Shlomi, welcome to IBA News.
Thank you. Hello.
On Memorial Day, the entire nation joins together in grief, but for bereaved families, the grief carries them the whole year through. What do you do to support them during that time?
Right, you're absolutely right. Yom HaZikaron is only one day, and a lot of our families see 365 other Yom HaZikaron, other remembrance days. For them, the lack of the presence of that meaningful adult in their life that fell in battle is felt every day during the year. We make sure that we're there for them. We make sure that the IDF Widows and Orphans organization is a wider family for them. We support them in significant junctions during their lives, such as their bar mitzvah, when they come to that age where they begin their journey to adulthood. We gather with a large celebration. We take them to a bar mitzvah trip in North America. We have 4 annual camps. It's called Otzma, strength camps, during the year, where we consider it like a big family trip in Israel. We switch locations every time, and the kids are hiking, they're rappelling, they're having all kinds of activities. But we also find way to touch the common ground that they have. For example, our last Otzma camp was in Eilat, and we blew sky lanterns to the sky with letters to their fathers, to the fathers of the children. That was a very meaningful and emotional moment where they were able to connect with their feelings without the concern that they have in their natural environments.
And I understand that today they met with the Prime Minister.
Right, that's where I'm coming from. We just had a meeting of 13 kids that lost their fathers in the military with the Prime Minister and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Netanyahu. Which is, it joins together to the embracement that we feel during Yom HaZikaron, which is a wonderful thing. We had a meeting with the Prime Minister. A few days ago we recorded a video clip with the Israeli superstar Shiri Maimon for a very famous song that speaks about the longing to someone who's no longer with us. And we really, on Yom HaZikaron, we really feel how the entire Israeli society, from the Prime Minister to the citizens that stand during the sirens, the entire Israeli society is with the bereaved families.
And precisely on that, on Memorial Day, we all stand together, but we hear complaints from families, bereaved families, every year that the transition between Memorial Day and Independence Day is too abrupt. Is it insensitive of us Israelis to start celebrating Independence Day as soon as the sun sets?
A lot of these families also say that the Memorial Day is not meant for the bereaved families. Again, they experience 365 days like that. The Memorial Day is more meant for the rest of the society to appreciate the sacrifice that they've been given. So having said that, of course, it's a very hard transition. They understand the connection between those 2 days, and I think that a lot of them would support. the connection. And there's still a debate whether it should be separated in a day or not, but obviously the connection between Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day, and Memorial Day is very natural for them as well.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for coming to the studio.
Thank you,
Taking a look at finance, and stocks were up on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange while the shekel lost in value against major foreign currencies. Here are the numbers. Turning to the weather, temperatures will rise ever slightly tomorrow. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. And that's a wrap for today. Please take note there will be no show tomorrow or Wednesday as Channel 33 screens the names of Israel's fallen soldiers. We'll be back on Thursday for a festive Independence Day broadcast. We leave you now with a special video clip recorded by singer Shiri Maimon and IDF orphans, which will also be performed in the Knesset on Memorial Day. I'm Eilon Aslan Levy, wishing you a respectful and reflective Memorial Day, and Shalom from Jerusalem.
בתפילתי ובפחדיי, מול המראות באישוניי, בשלוותי, במחשבתי, אני יודעת שאתה איתי. ואתה